Hello and welcome to a short video about work, and this is for Unit P2 for GCSE Science or Physics or Additional Science. Now, when we're talking about work, we mean energy transferred, and if it's energy transferred, it's measured in a unit called joules. And what we mean by work is looking at the product of the force used and the distance travelled. So imagine we've got a force over here used to move this box. We call the force 200 newtons that's exerted by the boy, and let's say the distance travelled is 1.5 meters. So the boy pushes the box with a force of 200 newtons for 1.5 meters. The formula that you use is W equals F times D. You'll be given this formula in the exam, but you must know what they stand for, or in fact they tell you what they stand for, but what you must know is the unit. So work is energy, the same as energy transferred, that's in joules. Force is in newtons, and distance is in meters. And to work out the answer to this question, it's just a case of multiplying the force times the distance. The force, which is now hidden, was or is 200 newtons, and the distance travelled is 1.5 meters. So the answer is 300 joules of energy transferred, or 300 joules of, or the work done is 300 joules. Now let's have a look at another scenario over here. We have a crane which is lifting a weight off the floor. So imagine the force required was 1,500 newtons, and we were moving it up a distance of 2 meters. You can already probably work out that the force is 1,500 times the distance of 2, so we've got 3,000 joules, or 3 kilojoules of work done. Now that's quite simple and straightforward. Imagine we have another crane over here that's done exactly the same work. We've got 1,500 newtons, we've got 2 meters moved up. Imagine this crane does the work in 20 seconds, and this does it in 10 seconds. Well, now, which one has done more work? It might be tempting to say that this crane has gone faster, so it's done more work, but if you do the calculation, work is force times distance is still 1,500 times 2, and that is still 3,000 joules, or 3 kilojoules. So the work done by the two is exactly the same, but what we're looking at that is different is another formula that you need to know, and that is this one here. Power equals work done over the time taken. Work done over the time taken. Now time is in seconds, work as we know is in joules, and power, this new thing that we're looking at now, is measured in watts. Okay, so again, they'll give you this formula in the exam, but you must know the units. So if you work out the power for each one, we can see which one has done more work. So I'm just going to squeeze it in over here in the corner. So the work done by this crane is 3,000 joules. It took 20 seconds, so that would be 150 watts of power, whereas this one over here is done the same amount of work, 3,000 joules, this time in 10 seconds, so the power would be 300 watts. 300 watts. So the one with the more power is the crane on the right hand side, and you need to be able to use this formula as well as the work formula. Now let's have a look at a couple of examples. Here we've got a boy moving a weight or a box up some stairs. Force uses 100, distance is 2 meters, so I know the box is here, but let's just pretend it's starting from the bottom there. What's the work done? Well, again, it's force times distance equals 100 times 2. The answer is 200 joules of energy transferred, or 200 joules of work. Now don't get confused by the fact that he's moving diagonally up the stairs. You might be tempted to think that it's a bigger distance, but we're moving the force, so we're moving the weight against the force of gravity, so we're moving it upwards in this direction, so that's the distance that we use and not the distance in the diagonal. Now another scenario over here, we've got a horse pulling a load for 20 meters, force of 5,000. What's the work done? That's simply a case of 5,000 times 20, which is 100,000 joules, or 100 kilojoules. That's the answer for that one. Now, what's the work done? If the time taken to pull the load was 1 minute, so remember, power equals work done over time taken. The work done was 100,000 joules, and the time taken was 1 minute and 20 seconds. Now remember, the unit here is in seconds, so we can't put 1.2 or 1 and 20 or whatever. We have to work it out in the amount of seconds, and the amount of seconds there is 80. So it's 100,000 divided by 80, and the answer for that is 1,250 watts. Remember, the unit for power is watts, or 1.25 watts. So there's a quick video for work and power for the exam that's coming up very shortly. Sorry about all the noise that was going on, but hopefully this was useful.